Should the Buffalo Bills look for James Cook's replacement in the upcoming NFL draft? I got to tell you, folks, this has been a trend amongst Bills Mafia ever since we heard from Ian Rappaport, since we've heard from Brandon Beane that an extension for James Cook is not going to happen this offseason. Now, I don't want to etch it in stone, if you will, because so many times we have seen that contract conversations have stalled and something ends up getting done around training camp or a little before training camp. But I think all the signs are pointing that the Buffalo Bills are just completely shifting focus over to the NFL draft. And much like the rest of the NFL, a lot of teams just don't see the value in paying running backs, especially since there is so much talent that comes in from the NFL draft each and every single year. It's a tough pill to swallow, but largely how most NFL organizations look at the running back position. They draft young, they burn them to the ground, and then they repeat the exact same cycle. Just look at some of the contracts we have seen from running backs for the past couple of years outside of the upper echelon guys like Saquon Barkley and or Christian McCaffrey. So on today's episode of the Dom Mafia Report, I am going to be unpacking whether or not I think the Buffalo Bills should address a potential replacement for James Cook and who some of those prospects might be. Spoiler alert, I am not in the camp of let's trade him and let's replace him with a first and or a second round talent. In fact, I would say that I am wholeheartedly against that. And spoiler alert as well, I also believe that I'm not even in the camp of drafting a running back at all. If we do, really hope that it's in the later rounds. But super happy to dive into it with everybody. If you are watching on YouTube, folks, please do me a favor and smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel and turn on bell notifications because I go live every single day, Monday through Friday, in the morning and then oftentimes in the afternoon, depending on how the news cycle is going. If you are listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, I highly recommend that if you are enjoying the show, please do me a favor and rate and review this episode, and also consider coming on over to YouTube. You could find me at Dan Mitchell. So that way you could be a part of our live chat community. As many of you know, I go for about 15 to 20 minutes discussing the topic on hand. And then for the remainder of the episode, I go to my live chat and let them take control of the conversation in a Q&A segment. But let's just dive right into it. James Cook, should we go out and find him or find a replacement for the running back? And short answer, folks, no, right? How I look at this Buffalo Bills offense, and this is largely a tough pill to swallow for many, but it's true. It is absolutely true. The biggest reason why this run game has exploded ever since Joe Brady has taken over as offensive line, or when Cromer specifically took over as the offensive line coach and finally ended up building the perfect personnel unit to run one of the most effective run blocking units in the NFL by itself, third in the NFL last year. I do not see the point of going and drafting the Omarion Hamptons of the world, the Cam Scatterbows of the world. Largely because, not based off of James Cook's production, but I want to take a look at what Ray Davis was able to accomplish in his rookie season. The only numbers that were low when it came to Ray Davis was simply his snap share. Several games we saw Ray Davis explode. A lot of us were celebrating on X that one game where he went well over 100 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Several times when you scroll through X, you would see several people go out and celebrate how Ty Johnson is the best RB3 in the NFL by itself. That's not just because that we knew the appropriate running backs to draft. That is not because that any running back that was drafted and or acquired in free agency is that guy is a dog, right? Obviously, a certain talent aspect does play a role. But I think the common denominator here is largely due to scheme and then also with the offensive line that Buffalo was able to build. And I do like to remind everybody, and I do want to remind everybody, that exact same unit is coming back in 2025. So there's a lot of debate on what we should do with James Cook. And I'm sure several of us saw on Friday when Ian Rappaport went on the Pat McAfee show. He said that James Cook will play this year. However, him and Buffalo are not in a good place as far as contract negotiations. And this is a trend that has been on this episode for the past couple of weeks, where we were saying, oh my God, is James Cook going to hold out? According to reports, it sounds like the vast majority of us were correct, that James Cook had way too much to lose to sit out this year. And he was just in a very intriguing position, because this draft class that is coming into the 2025 year is so deep that finding a trade partner for somebody that would want to pay a running back who is about to turn 26 years old, $15 million, where they very easily could find a running back all the way down to the 4th and or the 5th round, would make 0 sense and be able to ride out a rookie deal by it. So James Cook is on the Buffalo Bills next year. And I'm looking at the roster. Have James Cook on his final year. He is set to make $5.2 million in 2025. Then Ray Davis, who is going to be in his 2nd year as a Buffalo Bill, still a couple of more years with his rookie deal. And then also you have Ty Johnson, who we just extended to a 2-year contract, one of which fully guaranteed his 1st year. So we have 3 running backs. A lot of us like this whole Frank Gore Jr., like, oh my God, Frank Gore Jr. I have never been a guy that just likes to attach he's going to be a massive staple in the NFL just because he is related to a great. I think that is silly. I would be surprised if Frank Gore Jr. is on this 53-man roster. I think that we already know who the 3 running backs for this offense is going to be in 2025. So then it comes into, if James Cook is going to be on this team, which he is, should the Buffalo Bills go out and take advantage of this running back market? And you heard me say it at the beginning of the episode that I hope we don't. I really hope that we do not waste a draft pick on a running back where that position group in 2025 is so deep where it is. If we do, it better be a 5th and or a 6th round pick. Because I'm not sure if any of you have looked at the projected 53-man roster or who is currently on this Buffalo Bills team right now, but 10 picks are not going to make the 53-man roster. And when you look at the positions that so desperately need to be filled, there is a massive priority list that needs to take a way higher pedestal than the running back position by itself. As we know, a defensive tackle, a one-tech defensive tackle, many of us, I would say, would agree that we need to double dip at that position. CB2 is also a much more significant need than a running back. Safety is a much more significant need than a running back. Wide receiver that can split the field vertically, much more significant need. And dare I say, planning for the future for some depth on the offensive line, such as left guard, because David Edwards is going to be a pending free agent in 2025. I could name 5 position groups that I would rather have on this team coming out of this draft class than running back, even if James Cook somehow were to be able to force his way out of this team. But that does not mean that we can't have a conversation of who we could potentially look at. If that were to be the case. And again, I really hope this is not, really hope that we do not draft a running back. But if we do, if the Buffalo Bills decide that this is a massive need for everybody, we are going to take a look. We can go ahead and scratch off the Ashton Genties of the world. And so I saw some very young kids on X, like do a couple of mock drafts where we traded all the way up to 5 so we can get Ashton Genty, which, I mean, really made me want to punch a hole in my drywall. I think we're going to say no to Omarion Hampton. Same thing with Cam Scatabo. Same thing with Dylan Sampson, although he is crazy. Same thing with Caleb Johnson. Same thing with Henderson out of Ohio State. Same thing with Judkins. Basically, anybody that could potentially be targeted in the first and or the second round, and dare I even say the fourth. I would like to very much stay away from a running back. Very much like to stay away in the first and or the second round. If we do anything, and I mean anything at all, I think that it starts right here of who we could potentially target that could come in for competition. If, for example, that James Cook pulls the, oh my God, I have a sore hamstring and I can't play, I'm sorry. Number one would be Devin Neal out of Kansas. I really think that this guy is slept on. 5'11", 215 pounds by itself. In 2024, he ended up putting 16 touchdowns, 16 in 2023 as well. Wildly slept on prospect coming out of Kansas. I would also be okay with the Jaden Blues of the world. And again, folks, I am stepping out of my comfort zone right here because, again, when it comes into the fourth round selection, man, I want to be doubling down on another defensive tackle / a wide receiver, perhaps a safety, perhaps. I don't want us to panic pick a running back to address something that is not even an issue in the first place. But so far, we have Devin Neal, we have Jaden Blue, who would also be intriguing in my opinion. I would be okay with Mullings as well, 6'2", 233 guy as well. You have Tootin, who many have discussed as an option for the Buffalo Bills, although that his hands are made of pure butter. He has a massive turnover issue. I would certainly not want anything like that. And then last but not least, I would probably go with Ollie Gordon the second. 6'2", 225 pounds out of Oklahoma State. He had 12 touchdowns in 2024. And in 2023, the man had 21. 20 damn one. His production and his overall snap share decreased significantly, almost by 100. I love Ollie Gordon, and I would welcome him onto this team if absolutely necessary. But again, this is probably more along the lines where I would be okay throwing a dart. 6th / the 7th round in the running back department. I'm just not big on trying to address an issue in which that we don't have. We have 3 running backs who did very well for this team that are all under contracts. It's very clear that Joe Brady's system leverages and favors a run-first sort of attack. Ray Davis is going into his second year after a very solid, very slept-on performance in 2024. Same thing with Ty Johnson, who one game he was our leading receiver. He is a diehard RB3 for us, who has been wildly productive. And now we have James Cook, who has already been reported to play. And you know that that man is about to go out there and be on a mission because he is currently auditioning for a contract next offseason. He has that chip on his shoulder. So would I want to pass up on a quality wide receiver in the 4th round, right? Like a Kyle Williams or a Jalen Royals because, oh man, we need to go on ahead and address a running back. And no matter what, trust me, no matter what, I do not want I don't want a Hampton from North Carolina in the 1st and or the 2nd. I do not want a Scatabo in the 1st and or the 2nd round. A running back is the only position of need that I do not even want to entertain until the 4th, maybe even the 5th. And that's me being conservative at this point. So in conclusion, what I will say is that I do not think that running back is in need. I do not care how deep this class is. And I would be more than happy to not have a running back selection at all, like during this draft, because I feel that we have so many other things that need to be addressed on this roster. But say that we do, it better be a 4th and or a 5th round selection. And that dude better beat out somebody that is on this roster, 3 of which who are under contract right now. So that is my take. Now, folks, again, for all of you listening on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts, this is the time of the episode where I transition over to my YouTube live chat. A reminder, I do go live each and every single Monday through Friday. I talk for 15 to 20 minutes, and then for the remainder of the episode, I go over to the live chat where I poll the audience, I get their thoughts, I read their questions, and it's a very welcoming sort of environment. Solid Q&A segment, and we are about to shift over there momentarily. So certainly consider rolling on over to YouTube if, for example, you ever want to join an episode live. I do need to give a giant shout out to today's sponsor, and that just so happens to be William Mattar Law Offices, the #1 car accident attorney in the state of New York. Folks, if you are hurt in a car, you better call William Mattar. I would never wish this on my worst enemy, but in case you ever find yourself in a car accident where injuries are sustained, it is very important to find yourself the appropriate representation and look no further than William Mattar. All right. Great guy. Will, thank you so much for sponsoring today's episode. Folks, smash that like button on your way in. Happy Monday morning, April 7th. Let's see what the people are saying. Now, folks, again, I do want to remind everybody, if you are asking a question, please start it off with a Q and then also a dash so I can accurately point out all of the questions and be able to decipher between questions and or statements. I think that we can get this in. No bones about it has come in with a statement. Let's hear it. As long as they hit on their picks and address all of their needs this season, we could draft a running back in the first or the second round next season. And you know what? I think that's a common misconception because many people discuss or think that a draft is the last draft that will ever happen, right? Like, one other position of need for me is a linebacker. And many are saying, oh man, like what if we get a Jihad Campbell in the first, or what if we get a linebacker in the first, second, and or third round? That's a position that I'm actually okay with waiting until the later rounds and or we completely ignore it right in the first place, because there is a draft class in 2026. A draft strategy, right in my opinion, needs to heavily favor so the positions of need this year, and then afterwards you start building for the future once you start getting into the third end of the fourth. Say that you can't find a hidden gem or a sleeper, have no fear. Like you can find a running back in the first and the second next year as well. That's largely where we are. We have Walter S. No way Allen is letting his guy Cook walk, in my opinion. Allen would be a hypocrite to not support Cook getting his first extension when he got re-upped himself. So, Walter, one thing I always do like to point out, and this is certainly a pessimistic way of looking at things. However, I really like to be real in situations like this, right? Josh Allen and James Cook are nothing but coworkers. Like 9 times out of 10. Like 9 times out of 10, when you look at a football team at the professional level, they are nothing but coworkers. Sure, when you go into your day-to-day at your own job, sure, I guess you probably have 1 or 2 very, very close friends, right? But I'm not seeing James Cook at Josh Allen's bachelor party, for example. In fact, I'm pretty sure I only saw 1 Buffalo Bill at Josh Allen's bachelor party last week. It was Dalton Kincaid, I believe, right? For the most part, I think all of these guys understand that it is a business. And unfortunately, the humans or the human race is largely very self-motivated. I think Josh Allen understands that this is a business. And I don't think that there is like this like blind loyalty to teammates where in essence, the Buffalo Bills are your employer and your teammates are largely your coworkers. Sure, like you could be like, great, like, haha, great, great, great. But like really at the end of the day, it's just how the business works in the NFL. So he's going to have to play on his final year of his rookie season. He's making about $5.2 million this year, which is doubling the amount of money that he has ever made in his entire life. Sounds like we have already done it. Check out Isaac Tesla from Arkansas. He looks like a great 2-3 pickup. I did see the guy at the Senior Bowl. Has some speed. He is our guy. We have Techie coming in, and thank you so much for structuring your question like this, folks. If, for example, you have a question for me, please begin it with a Q dash so I can decipher between questions and or statements as we roll into this Q&A segment on each and every single episode. Question, I haven't caught up. Can you tell me the running back options in the draft? Techie nerd, what is going on, dude? So a brief synopsis of what I ultimately ended up saying at the beginning of this episode. I would be livid if, for example, we drafted a running back in the first and or the second round, and I wouldn't be pleased if we drafted a running back in the third and, I mean, in all honesty, the fourth round. I do not think that this is a position of need because right now we have 3 running backs on the roster that are going to play this year. We extended Ty Johnson. He's going to be RB3. Have Ray Davis on his second year of his contract and have James Cook, who has 0 leverage whatsoever. He's going to play because say that he sits out, then he's missing out on an opportunity to prove himself and up his stock even more for the next free agency period. So I feel like all the Scatabos and I feel like the Genties and I feel like the whatever, this offensive line, if you were to ask me, has largely elevated the performance from running backs that we have had since Joe Brady and Cromer have taken over and really gave us that focus on the run game for the past 1.5 to 2 years. So say in some alternate reality that we were able to trade James Cook, even if we were to trade James Cook during this draft, I still would want to wait for a running back in the 5th and or the 6th round and just hand the keys over to Ray Davis. I still would want to do that. 110%. But as far as guys that I would like / I would be okay with, vast majority of them would begin in the 5th or the 6th round. I love Ollie Gordon II out of Oklahoma State. And I also like Jaden Blue out of Texas, both 5th round talents. And as long as I look at our roster, folks, and I see a double dip at the defensive tackle position, a CB2 and a wide receiver prior to selecting a running back, then I'm a happy man. That is likely where we are at. Folks, please do me a favor. Smash the like button if you haven't had an opportunity of doing so already. So I see Leo right in the chat, and he said that he is the 26th like button smashed. Let's go on ahead and run this up to about 100. Easiest way to show some love. Zach Titus, question. If there were a James Cook holdout, can Ray and Ty shoulder the load? 110%. 110%. So this team, so by itself, right, like was largely running back by committee. So Cook was not a red zone guy. He was not a third down back. You typically saw Ty Johnson and Ray Davis out there occasionally. 110%. This success for the run game, folks, has everything to do with the scheme that Joe Brady has put in and also the offensive line run blocking scheme that Cromer has crafted with the best possible personnel that could be implemented. So 110%. But again, there's 0 reason why or would benefit James Cook at all for holding out in 2025. 0 benefit. He's going to be 26. He's owed $5.2 million. If he does not play, he does not earn a penny. And he's missing out on an opportunity to show the NFL that he could do the exact same season again, that he is consistent production. He's not going to play. If anything, maybe he doesn't show up to the voluntary OTAs, like maybe he does not show up to mandatory minicamp. Maybe he doesn't show up a couple of days to training camp, but rest be assured, if this dude wants to make his $5.2 million, which is double the amount of money he has made his entire NFL career, it does not behoove him to do it. Zach GQ, what position do you feel is the most important to fill in this draft this year? Zach G is coming in, man. All right. What's most important is defensive tackle. Second most to me is CB2. Third is safety. Fourth is a second defensive tackle. Fifth is wide receiver. Sixth is a left guard because David Edwards is a pending free agent next year. Somebody we have to discuss. We have Bill 716 has come in with a question. I'm very excited to See what he has to say. And by the way, folks, if you have a question, please begin your sentence with a Q dash so I can decipher between statements and or questions. Question: where do you see the sneaky needs that may not be important this year, but definitely maybe next year? I think a linebacker, an offensive guard, and running back if we don't do anything in the upcoming draft. So I think you hit the nail on the head, man. Certainly linebacker because Matt Milano is playing on his final year. But again, these sneaky positions of need, I really hope that we don't address those until the fourth, fifth, and or the sixth round. Because while I'm okay with planning for the future, this Buffalo Bills team normally only runs two linebackers, right? So we have Bernard, we have Matt Milano. Yes, I understand both of them have injuries every now and again, but us drafting a linebacker very high in the draft so that we could, hey, listen, that's a great insurance policy in case. I'm not in the business of in case. I am in the business of this dude's going out there and he's starting weeks 1 through 18 for us. I'm not looking for an insurance policy that is that expensive for me. Same thing with offensive guard. I think that we could probably behoove ourselves to find a player in the fifth and or the sixth round that could sit behind David Edwards. That's quality depth because he's going to be gone. And then running back as well, although that I'm fine with waiting completely. I am fine with waiting completely until next year's draft if completely necessary. We have Go Bills. He's saying, I would be fine drafting Jaden Blue in the fifth or sixth round if he drops that far. I agree. I agree. Question from Techie Nerd. Ray Davis nearly looked better than James Cook. And do you think he is Cook's replacement? So I wouldn't even say that it was Cook's replacement, right? Because I see both of them playing this year in 2025, right? And so, of course, barring any sort of injury. But with Ray Davis, yeah, dude, his advanced analytics were right in line with yards per carry. His contact balance was through the roof. He's built more like a running back that can run in between the numbers. He's quality in the receiving game. Do not sleep on Ray Davis's production in 2025. I have a feeling that he might be this guy. Oh, we have Brandon Day with a statement. Oh, I love this. If Bean does draft someone in the top 4 rounds, it tells you a lot about the Cook situation, in my opinion. It must be absolutely terrible if that was the case. We have Carvin Joseph. He's coming in with a question. I don't know if I want this to happen, but since the Raiders cut Jack Jones, we, the Bills, are in a position of need for CB2. Do you think the Buffalo Bills will show interest? So I've always been a massive advocate of a championship team is never built in March. It is only built in April, meaning that I like being able to build from the drafts, stock up on young, cheap contracts, and develop them into a system where, opposed to free agents, oftentimes you need to unteach some bad habits that made them get cut in the first place and hope that they could find their way into the system. I think Buffalo is done for the most part as far as free agency, although Jack Jones could potentially make sense because I don't really see him being very expensive, and I wouldn't even be able to, carve him in as a 53-man roster spot. In fact, I think at this point in Jack Jones' career, I think we could probably attach the label of a camp body. Maybe he does make it, maybe he does not. But you just look at who is on the depth chart opposite, right, of Christian Benford right now. You have Jamarcus Ingram, and you also have Dane Jackson, right? I don't think Dane Jackson was brought in to be the starter CB2 on the opposite end. I think Dane Jackson was brought in for the exact same role that he played in Buffalo prior to him leaving. A guy on the depth chart that fills in if somebody ultimately ends up getting hurt. So say that you were to ask me, I'm still hoping that we lock down a CB2 in the draft, hopefully relatively early as well. I think that that's what we would be looking for. We have MT is coming with a question. What's up, MT? I hope all is well. How high, and do you think we could get in the first round if we trade James Cook? 3 picks, maybe. 3 picks. So here's the deal when it comes into trading players on draft day, right? First off, you need to find a trade partner. And this year, with how deep this running back class is, why would anybody want to trade for a 26-year-old running back and have to pay him $15 million a year, where they could simply walk away with an Omarion Hampton right in the like high second round pick, or an Ashton Genty so a top 10 pick, for example, or a Cam Scatabo in the mid second round, or a Sampson from Tennessee in the late second round, perhaps even in the early third, and pay them pennies on the dollar and more than likely get the exact same production. So I don't think that we would really be able to like move up a lot. I mean, really at all, especially since the need for a running back is so deep in this class. I don't really see why anybody would want to. You know what I mean? We have Movie Madness question. And do you really think he cares about 5 million while he is gambling for generational money? Well, he's only made about $4.2 million, right? So technically, he's made $4.2 million in his NFL career so far, 3 years. All right, 3 years, and that was a combination of $5 million. He's doubling his income in just 1 year of play. So to be honest with you, I really hope that he cares about $5.2 million. And even if that is not his biggest motivator, him having an opportunity of going out there and putting on a display and auditioning for next free agency where he could get a big deal, I think that should be his biggest motivator. Because imagine. And so we think about this objectively, right? If you were a GM and you saw that James Cook took a full year off of football because he wanted $15 million per year, would you give him $15 million that following offseason? Likely not. And I think you can thank Le'Veon Bell for that, because that's exactly what happens. There's way too many red flags when a player ends up sitting out for the entire year and has zero production, especially at the running back position. So that's where I'm at. Dexy Gaming has come in and he put together a mock draft for me. He says, Dan, my Bills mock 8. We have Trey Amos, CB, Landon Jackson, defensive end. I love Landon Jackson. Then we got Xavier Watts, safety. Then a Joshua Farmer, defensive tackle. Kyle Williams, wide receiver. A Jamari Caldwell, defensive tackle. A Trevor Etienne, running back. Willie Lampkin, guard. Sean Dolak, linebacker. And Waxter, CB, with the final. I love it. I love it, man. All right, we have David Abbott has come in with a question. What is the team's biggest weakness? 1, stopping the run game. 2, putting pressure on opposite quarterbacks. 3, stopping the opponent on third downs. 4, the difficulty moving down the field quickly with long routes from our wide receivers on the outside flanks. David, great question there. I would say hands down the biggest issue with this Buffalo Bills team is stopping third down conversions. And largely that has to go with getting to the quarterback, right? Because as far as stopping the run, like, you can fix that. And I believe we made moves this offseason already to attempt to fix that. Because number one, of course, if Bosa can stay healthy, he is a tremendous run stopper, tremendous off of the edge. As long as we draft a solid one tech, I think that our stopping the run issue, quote unquote, and we can get into that a bit later, because I quite frankly think that Buffalo is largely I will allow you to run on us, so we can make you think that you can when it gets into the second half. And there are so many data points and so many games of proof of how Sean McDermott did that all last season. However, it's certainly stopping third down conversions, and you have to get to the quarterback for that. And I think you fix that exclusively by getting a one-tech defensive tackle that draws double teams, that allows the rest of the defensive line to eat. I don't care how good your secondary is. If, for example, your defensive line is not getting pressure on the QB, eventually he will make a play. He will make a play regardless. So, hands down, number one is stopping third down conversions, if you were to ask me. We have Zach Titus has come in. Question dash. And folks, say, for example, you have a question, please go on ahead and put a Q dash so I can get to as many as humanly possible and I can decipher between questions and or statements. Zach is coming and saying, if we were able to get wide receiver Matthew Golden by moving up or by him falling in the first round, would that make up for a defensive tackle pick there? So it depends on who was on the board, right? Say, for example, that Kenneth Grant and Matthew Golden were on the board, then I would probably take Kenneth Grant, right? But say, for example, that Kenneth Grant and Tylee Williams were gone for some reason, and we had Matthew Golden staring us right in the face, 110%, I would take Matthew Golden. It just depends on how the board falls, if you were to ask me. We have Deshaun has come in with a question. Thank you. Would you be mad if the Bills draft a wide receiver with their first round? No, I would not, but it ultimately all depends on how the board falls, like I said, right? Say that we picked Matthew Golden over Kenneth Grant or Tyleek Williams, dare I say Eminwari, then no, I would be completely fine with that. We have Kevin has come in and saying, what's up, Dan? How are you? Damn, you know what? That is so nice. Thank you, Kevin. I am doing great, my friend. And so I had a great weekend. It is a bit overcast in Florida right now. I have been missing the sunshine. And so my pasty ass needs the sun, as many of you can probably tell watching this morning's episode. So hopefully that is just right around the corner. Kevin has come in. What's up, Dan? How are you doing today? We already got to that one. We have Deshaun has come up with a question. Would you be mad if the Bills draft a wide receiver with their first round pick? We already got to that one. David has come in with a statement. He's saying, you can't pay Cook that much if he can't block on third down. Seems obvious to me. It's to a point, right? Like, so we look at our offensive line and we were top 3 in run blocking in 2025. And some people, it's difficult for them to look at our roster and acknowledge the fact that the reason why Ty Johnson had such a good season last year and like he elevated his career like right in 2024 was because of that offensive line. And there was a reason why Ray Davis looked so good with his limited snaps last year. And I think there was also a reason why James Cook absolutely went off in the previous 2 years, right? It's a lot to do with our scheme, our run blocking scheme, the personnel associated with the run blocking by itself. This team is running back by committee. We always will be. And that's what works. And you can't be upset about it. We have Dexy Gaming. Dan, Willie Lampkin is my guy for the Bills at guard. He can play left guard, right guard, and center. He has 2,551 snaps between the 3 positions on the line. That is exactly a lineman that I would be thrilled with. Somebody with versatility. Somebody that could be an emergency offensive lineman if needed, if we were to ultimately end up going after that eventual replacement. I would love Willie Lampkin. I saw him at the Senior Bowl as well, my friend. All right, we have Derek Cunningham. What's up, Derek? Hope all is well. He says, thoughts, Dan. The running backs we met with at the Combine are Jaden Blue, we have Trevor Etienne, and Jordan James. Thank you so much, Derek. I do appreciate that. And that aligns with exactly my dream scenario. Number one, I would be fine not walking away with a single running back in this draft class whatsoever. Because, again, I think only 6 to 7 players will make this team. Us drafting a running back, he better be better than James Cook, Ray Davis, and Ty Johnson. Because otherwise, we would just be drafting them to be a practice squad player, right? Blue, very fast out of Texas. He'd be interesting. I'm not a big ETN guy. I'm not. And so he did not impress me at the Senior Bowl. He had a couple of turnovers, which were certainly ugly. He's smaller, but we'll see. All right, Dan, All right. We have something from Walter here. Question, Dan, I have been hearing about all these off-field concerns with Isaiah Bond. What are they? Because they seem to have come out of nowhere, similar to AD Mitchell last year. Man, you know what? It sounds like Texas wide receivers just always end up getting that negative media, right? So Isaiah Bond is interesting. He has met with the Buffalo Bills. He had a meeting, I believe it was last week. Somebody's meeting with the Buffalo Bills today. It's August 7th or August 8th. I forgot what prospects coming in. It's been a long weekend. Um, he hasn't been on top of my target list. Yes, he is fast, but I think that he may only be a gimmick wide receiver, like somebody that is exclusively just a threat that can go vertical. And that's what we need. And that's largely what Joe Brady likes to do, is to use gimmicks for wide receivers and try and moneyball a wide receiver number one. Again, as far as like wide receivers that I would prefer over Isaiah Bond would be Jalen Royals. He is like my draft crush for wide receiver. Then Kyle Williams in the fourth and or the fifth round. I'm not particularly big on Bond. I'm not particularly, but we'll see. We have Bills Mafia J718. He says, "What's up, Dan? What makes you say this about Cook? What did I miss over the weekend? Had a rough couple of days. I hope you were having a good day, bro. Go Bills." Well, let me tell you what, Bills Mafia J718. I sincerely hope that you were having a wonderful Monday. And I am so sorry to hear that you have had a rough past couple of days. I guarantee you that your week will get better. And I appreciate you tuning on in to talk a little Bills football. So we saw Ian Rappaport went on the Pat McAfee show on Friday, and he said that while James Cook is going to play, him and Buffalo are not in a good place. He's still going to play, and we are just having a conversation of if, for example, we should be targeting a running back in the draft for a replacement. My take is that if we do, I really hope it's a fifth or a sixth round selection, and we don't make the mistake of trying to prioritize the running back position when, quite frankly, we should be prioritizing actual positions of need. Short Bus Terror Squad has come in with a question. And do you see the Bills using picks from 2027 to trade up with teams wanting to draft Manning in 2027 and have an extra first and or a second round pick? So we have 2 first rounds and we have one at 30. Maybe, say for example, that like we want like a blue chip player in the first round. And a blue chip player would be like a Will Johnson, a corner out of Michigan, right? 110%. But say that we use any sort of future pick, it's going to be to get us up into the third round, because where it stands, we do not have a third round pick. I believe that we need to. Dan, if we took a guard early, like the fourth, Dylan Fairchild is also who I like. We have Jamaz come in and saying, what happens when James Cook stays and doesn't get enough touches? Could be a locker room issue mid-season. Trade him. Well, let's hope that our culture is a bit stronger than that. We have JD the Great saying, yes, trade Cook and find a replacement. It's kind of difficult to see if so that was sincere from our friend that's a Dolphins fan here. Dan, Scatabo needs to be a Bill. We have Gary is coming, man. He's a big Scatabo guy. He's a second rounder. I'm not sure if Buffalo's going to pull the trigger there, but I'm a big Scatabo fan. Ray Davis is good enough from Big Jamie Games. Damn. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much, guys, for tuning in to another edition of the Dom Mafia Report. I do want to remind everybody, if you can, say that you ever miss a live stream. I do upload all of these videos on Spotify/Apple Podcast. Link for Spotify is actually in the description. So go on ahead and follow me over there, and then also leave a rating and review. Say, for example, you do like the show, and in case you do miss a live stream every now and again, would mean the world to me. And for those of you that are listening to this episode right now, say, for example, you want to be a part of our live chat community where I transition over to a Q&A segment with each and every single show, definitely consider coming on over to YouTube. Just search Dan Mitchell, and you will see all of these episodes. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the Dom Mafia Report, and I will see you guys a bit later this afternoon. I am welcoming on Bruce Exclusive to unpack his big board and also discuss several other burning topics around the Buffalo Bills franchise. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you next time. Peace.